don't wait to start. Like I said, there's never a right time to start a business, and don't be afraid. People think they need money to start businesses. It's absolutely not true. You need obviously a little bit, but you can start. You can start somewhere. You can go to, Home Depot, make your own prototype. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you could sell, if you could sell your prototype, you're fine. With platforms such as crowdfunding and Kickstarter, you can essentially raise your whole product without barely putting up any upfront capital. So I hate the excuse that I don't have any money, I'm not funded, or I don't have time. It's actually the worst excuse, in my opinion. It's the one you hear most of, because you can make time for anything. If you get home after work and you'd rather watch 3 hours of Netflix, that's the time right there, right? So I always say just dive in, make mistakes. It's very important to make the mistakes early while your risk is essentially nothing, and you're not making big mistakes later. Make the mistakes now, and you'll learn real quick whether or not you want to continue or not. And I highly recommend just not waiting.
Welcome to the In Factor. I'm Rebecca White, and today I'm joined by Avin Samtani. Avin is an entrepreneur with a knack for launching and expanding consumer products. With a proven track record in both the B2B and direct-to-consumer sectors, Avin brings a wealth of expertise in sales, product development, marketing, and e-commerce. On a beach trip a little over a decade ago, Avin and his business partners were robbed while taking a quick swim. Today, they've turned that terrible day into a thriving business that helps millions of people keep their possessions safe. Join us as we delve into Avin's entrepreneurial journey, his insights into launching and expanding consumer products, and his experiences in identifying and creatively capitalizing on growth opportunities. So, Avin, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to learn more about your background. You're new here in the Tampa Bay area where I'm located. And I know you've been here a couple of years, and we were just talking about it. It's a great city and lots of entrepreneurial energy here now, which I can say, having been here 14 years, hasn't always been the case, but it's a really amazing place to be now, thanks to a lot of people moving here like yourself who are adding to our entrepreneurial community. So I know you're from, I think you said you grew up in New York, or you're a New Yorker. So tell us a little bit about your background. Have you been an entrepreneur, one of those people, were you an entrepreneur at 12 years old and
Yes
selling
and no.
lemonade?
No, actually not. I came from a whole, everyone in my family has been an entrepreneur. No one's ever worked for anybody. But I actually grew up in Hong Kong. I lived there for many years, so I was 17 years old. And I moved to New York, went to college there. And I actually was in the commercial and residential financing business, with a lot of big developments in the city and just kind of private money deals. Had no kind of background in any of this. Long story short, my two partners and I were at a friend's wedding in Miami Beach, and we were at the pool kind of hanging out, and we put our watches, our valuables in our, under our towels and our shoes, kind of went for a really quick dip, stayed within reach, kind of constantly looking back at our stuff. And within a few minutes, we came back and everything was gone.
Oh,
it was
boy.
like a total nightmare. And, it was quite a bit of, jewelry missing, and we caused a little bit of a scene. We were very upset about it, and we couldn't stop thinking about it. We went back in the ocean and we said, how's there no safe on these chairs of these really nice resorts? And I kind of went back to when I was a kid traveling with my family. My mom always had to always stay back and watch us all go in the ocean, and people had to always kind of take turns or peek back. And I've learned that this problem has not been solved yet. And my two partners and I, we couldn't stop thinking about it. We started drawing stuff on a napkin that day. We had no background in consumer products or product making at all. We were all kind of in the finance business. And we just couldn't stop thinking about it, put it that way. We got back from the wedding and just kind of went full force, just start thinking of names, ideas, and that's kind of how it all started. And it's pretty much continued since then.
So that I love that story because
Yeah.
so many entrepreneurial ventures come out of a personal need, right?
Right.
And you've certainly identified one. I know how that is. I mean, we live here in a beach community around water all the time, and that's an area where you can't take your valuables into the water with you, but somebody has to keep an eye on it.
That's right.
That's a great story. So tell me how that. Well, so there's a lot of things I want to dig into. First of
Mhm.
all. Growing up in Hong Kong, so how has that affected you? And did you have a lot of family there, or
Yeah.
so your entire family was there?
Yes, my mother's side, were all there. They're in the garment business, so they produce, t-shirts, kind of just all type of garments for larger retailers in the UK and Europe. So we were there for a long time. I speak Cantonese. My whole side of the family speaks, Cantonese. They've always kind of just been in that manufacturing distribution type of business. So yeah, pretty much my whole mom's side was there. I mean, they're scattered along the UK and places in Europe, but pretty decent concentration in the Hong Kong area. My brother's still there, but I grew up when it was still under British rule, and it was a very
Hmm.
different place than it is today.
Uh-huh.
So I'm a big city guy, if you haven't noticed. So Tampa is definitely new for me, but I love that it still kind of has that urban suburban feel. It's funny because whenever I talk to people here, I say I'm in the suburbs, and they laugh. They say, "This is not the suburbs." I said, "For me, it is." Because I live in a house and there's trees everywhere. It's the suburbs, but yeah, I'm just a big city person. A high energy, Hong Kong and then New York City. It's just two, very very high paced cities for me.
Yes,
So
yeah, and
yeah,
and quite different in the sense that we have to drive everywhere here
yeah,
in Tampa, which is kind of tough if you're used to having,
just walking.
transportation and
Hmm.
walking. Yeah, it kind of. I just recently spent some time in Italy, and we were walking constantly, and you feel so good when you're doing
That's
that.
right.
So, but well, okay, so that's really cool. So you had role models who, on both sides,
Correct. Yep.
mother and father. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you had role models, which we know is a big influence on entrepreneurial mindset and starting companies. But you also had a problem. So tell us how that first company went. What happened with that?
So that's a company I'm actually still in today.
Okay.
So funny enough, to go back to that, we didn't know anything about starting a business, especially on the consumer side, whether it's production, patenting, just everything. So we kind of dove into it. Back then, 3D printing wasn't a thing yet, so we needed to make a prototype. We went on YouTube, started learning how to do some stuff, and one of my partners has a contracting background, so he kind of figured out the whole 3D printing of our prototype. And we were all doing pretty well with our current careers. So we didn't want to just completely disconnect and say, all right, let's do this. So we gave it a little bit of time. We filed a provisional patent just to kind of lock the idea up. So once that was issued, we found out there was an inventors trade show in Pittsburgh. So we said, all right, let's just give this a shot. Let's gauge the interest before we completely just kind of dive in. So we made a 3D printed version of our original Aquavault box, which we still have in our office, and we took it to this show in Pittsburgh. And I mean, we were the talk of the town. It was just super busy, and we just saw like, hey, this is a really big opportunity. Everyone stopped by and said, "This is a wonderful idea. I've been through this. Nothing's ever been done." Because you could be on a cruise line, you could be at a hotel pool, even just swimming to the pool bar. You can never kind of go together without feeling that thing. So we said, hey, especially after that show, the interest just completely sparked our, hey, let's do this, and let's kind of just start. So we started the whole production. We thankfully, the internet is just such a great place, and we we met a few people at the show, some manufacturing partners over there. So we started there, but eventually, we outgrown it. But that going to a show like that definitely helps you kind of get exposed to everyone you need to kind of meet in one roof. That's why I'm a huge fan of trade shows, because you're getting everybody in that particular industry in one place for a few days to kind of just get all that information. So we created our prototypes, and we started selling them, and that's basically, we were strictly focused on that B2B model. We wanted our product to be at every hotel, resort, theme park, and build out kind of a recurring revenue model from there. never did we think we'd be in a position now where we're, doing e-commerce, we're doing retail, we're doing so many different things. But our sole focus at the beginning was to get into that B2B space with the hotels.
Yeah. So I think I read that you're also doing direct to consumer now. So
We do.
let's talk a little bit about. There's so many things I want to dig into there. A lot of great things in your story, but while we're on it, let's talk a little bit about selling B2B versus selling D2C. I guess
Yep.
DTC, direct to consumer. What are the differences there, and how did that transformation happen?
So the transformation happened when we started getting, we had one product solely for the commercial sector, and we were getting tons of emails saying, "Hey, this product made my vacation so great. Had a peace of mind. Can you create a portable version that we could take on our travels?" And we started getting it so much that we paid attention. And we created what's called the Flex Safe. It utilizes the same IP as our AquaVault Safe, and it's like a level 5 cut resistant bag, which is made out of a grade down from Kevlar. And we started selling that online, and it just completely took off. It dwarfed the sales, of our other product, and it just started really taking off for us. And we said, "Hey, this is a great market. Let's start selling it to the end user." And with us going D2C, B2B, we never had that consumer data. We never knew who the consumer was. We know it was someone staying at the property, but we didn't know who they actually were. So by going that e-com route, we were able to now know who our customer was, capture the data, use them for future, launches of other color variations or new products, and just kind of always have that database, which has been great for us. B2C is great from a customer service standpoint because you're not dealing with the consumer directly. You're dealing with the one,
Right. Yeah.
hotel, and it's over. Direct to consumer is challenging from a customer service standpoint. And from the beginning, we had no employees in our company until only about 4 years ago. We did everything ourselves, from answering every customer service email to going to every trade show to just, quality control of all our products, because we wanted to learn kind of that whole mailroom model, right? Where if you start at the bottom, you understand every role, and you kind of can't, it's easy to finger point when you've already been through it and you've done it. So we just didn't want to kind of pass that key on to anybody else without learning it. So by doing that, the direct to consumer side for us has been way better. Quite honestly, we want to focus more on that now because you're getting paid immediately. You know who your customer is, and the scale is massive on that. And sadly, a lot of these bigger hotels, they take a long time to pay, and they have a lot of different return models, and it's just more of a customer service disaster sometimes dealing with all that, where we've just seen massive success on the direct to consumer side now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can see that. That in most instances, it's easier to have fewer customers than who buy more each time
Right.
they buy. But I can understand in your case, that what I love about what I'm hearing from you is how much you and your business partner listen to the customer, and I'm sure that's part of the culture of your organization.
Hmm.
Do you have any insight, for our listeners, about this whole process of listening to the customer? How do you know when to take that next step, and where do you all look for information now? Well, there's so many opportunities to get feedback now.
Yeah, getting customer feedback to us has been, everything, because we, let's say we want to launch new variation or new color. We actually reach out to our existing customer base with, basic poll just to get their idea. As them being the current customer, there's no one better for that, data than them directly. But knowing your customer is super important because they're the one actually paying for your product. They give great advice. We've had someone say, "Hey, could you add this to your product? Could you add this? It's just another idea." But getting that feedback is totally instrumental to the growth of the business. And because you can't really find that anywhere else, the consumer typically always goes to that. And I'll touch on to how we raise money later. Like one of the methods, it's kind of the same way. It's going to the customer, going to your actual people who value your product, buy your product. They're going to be the biggest supporters. They're your biggest fans. So just going directly to them, has always been, successful for us.
Do you all use a lot of social media to talk to your customers, or do you use more direct mail, or do you
Um,
use trade shows are
yeah,
great for B2B. How do you talk to
yeah.
your direct to sell customers?
So for our customers online, we do like a monthly newsletter, email. We do tons of email blasts. We do have social, all of them: Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. We just started on the TikTok thing about a year ago, and that's actually been really good. But yeah, we're pretty active on our socials, and we talk back and forth with our customer. We tend to reach out after a product's been shipped just to kind of get their feedback on it and how we could be better, basic things like that. But we try to stay engaged with the customer as much as
Yeah.
we can. Yeah.
One of the things I'm hearing a lot is the power of going back to the email list, because
Hmm.
with social media in flux and things changing, and you could lose your customer base, if one of them goes out of business or there's some other issue with them, and we're seeing a lot of that happening now, a lot of
Hmm.
potential issues. So what are your thoughts? I mean, I love that you have a newsletter and that you do direct to sales, have or direct to customer through email. Have you also done any crowdfunding or used any of those platforms?
We did. So when we launched one of our, we started just kind of on a shoestring budget. We had no funding. We did all of this on our own, which I think is a huge plus to anybody because you're way more careful. You're doing things the right way. You're scaling the right way. I know plenty of friends that were flushed with capital day one and lost it all because
Yeah,
they just thought,
yeah.
let's just throw money at every problem we have and we'll just find someone to fix it. That's a terrible mistake. We learned from the ground up by going on YouTube, 3D printing our own products, just to kind of understand, and when it's your own money, you're just way more cautious about everything. So ultimately, the crowdfunding thing, when we wanted to create a larger size of our FlexSafe product, we actually went on Kickstarter and Indiegogo just to try it out because we said, hey, what other platform could be better than for us we're essentially getting prepaid orders. The risk is zero for us. We're testing the demand right now. Is this product going to be successful or not before we even make it? And the best part about that too is you're getting feedback along the way. So if someone says, oh, does it have this, does it have this, you can kind of think about it because you haven't produced the product yet. You can say, hey, that is a good idea. So you can take all that data from thousands of people and create almost the perfect product, and your risk is, like I said, zero because you're not committing to any capital production until the raise is over. So we actually successfully, I think we did, I think over 800K on the raise, which was amazing with no marketing. This is like when crowdfunding first started. We were super, happy with that outcome. We came out of pocket zero for everything, and we already had the customers to deliver, the first round of product to. So, I highly encourage things like that, especially if you're operating on a lower budget, because the crowdfunding, it could be your way out too, to dodge a bullet. Be like, hey, this is not a good idea, or you just think of things someone else brings up that you never thought about. So I highly recommend crowdfunding, and Kickstarters and all that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great marketing tool, and
It
I
is.
think not everybody thinks of it that way, but it's a fantastic way to communicate, and as you pointed out, you raise money, but make
Yeah.
sales and get feedback all at
Yeah,
once.
you're
So
going in zero risk,
yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah,
And
which is what entrepreneurs are always trying
mhm.
to do, minimize that risk. Speaking of minimizing the risk, you all started this as a side hustle, or at least
Correct.
I'm going to label it that. I hope that
Hmm.
would be correct. And so you were both still working full time?
Yeah, there was
What,
three of us. We were all still
or
working.
three of you? Okay.
Yeah, three total. We were actually all college, buddies and fraternity brothers, and very close. So it really made it easy for that trust factor for us. But I'd say we only stayed working for maybe 2 years. Once we had a full production cycle, we did our first show actually in Orlando. It was a first proper trade show with real product. And that's when we said, all right, this is it, because it's kind of an all or nothing situation with any business. If you have something else to fall back on, you're not going to be as aggressive and motivated. So we all made a pact that, hey, let's do this. And, we took very, very small salaries, and, it was painful for a long time, but, it slowly allowed the business to grow. And, we stayed committed to it, and we're still committed to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting because at one time, we always advised entrepreneurs that we were working with, you got to cut the strings and be all in and be
Hmm.
committed. But, side hustles today are more and more popular, I think. A lot of people, especially since the pandemic, people working from home are working on a side hustle,
I agree.
and it can be a way that you can get things started. What triggered that transition? Like, how did you know when to quit?
It was just the commitment, with certain side hustles, as you mentioned. If you're, say for example, a copywriter, social media person, that's pretty easy to manage with another full-time gig. But once you're producing product and what needing to scale it and get it out there, etc., it just requires a little bit more of a, I think, an upfront commitment, because we did the old school way. We went door to door to every hotel. We walked into every property we sold to at the time, waited for the GM, waited for the recreational manager, actually talk to them, get their feedback, show them the product. So it was never emailing. It was never, well, we did a lot of calling too to get appointments, but a lot of it was just walking into every, I'll never forget, was one summer in the Jersey Shore. We were up there for a trade show in Atlantic City, and we had a car full of vaults. And we said, let's just go down the shore and, hit every single hotel. And it was just one of those really awesome experiences where, we were just getting new accounts constantly. And then some random article in Norway came out about our product that we didn't even know about, and we were sitting in the car, and our sales were just flying up online too. So it was just one of these moments where we had a carload filled with vaults going door to door, and people don't do
Yeah.
that, I think, anymore. But we're very hands on, and I think you couldn't do that managing. It just depends what kind of business you're in, but we're in the financial business, it's very a lot of employers are not going to really allow you to take that time off and do
Go
all
drive
that.
the
So
Jersey Shore and
yeah,
sell
there was
sell
no work
yeah.
from home. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
But I love the story, and I love the hands-on and the fact that you and your partners were down in the nitty-gritty, because that's so important. It's you find out things that you would never know otherwise. And
that's true.
I started a company a number of years back, and by doing the finances myself, at least in the early stages, my partner and I were able to learn, some big mistakes we had made in our bid process really early, and it could have killed us actually, because our customer was costing us more than we were making, but we didn't realize it because,
Right.
we were digging into things and on a real intimate level. So, I think we all have those stories. And the important part is that you were out there getting that feedback, feet on the street, figuring it out. And so I want to ask you about the patent process,
Hmm.
because, a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with and that I talk to are, trying to get a product developed. And did you use expert, did you, how did you go through the patent process? Did you figure that out sort of on your own and then
Yeah,
bring in attorneys, or?
we figured the provisional part on our own. It's pretty basic. To do a provisional, it's pretty basic. I think, especially now with the Chat GPT stuff, you could probably do it pretty well, depending
Yeah.
on how complex the product is. But for us, we kind of did it on our own. The provisional, once that was granted, it bought us that 1 year. Kind of, hey, do we still want to do this or not? But it locked our idea in for a year, and we retained someone professionally to do the actual patent. Now we actually have 9 issued patents, and we have 8 trademarks granted. So it's been an amazing process. I would advise any listeners out there to not be discouraged or deterred from applying for a patent. Provisional is pretty simple, and if there's any way I can ever help, I'm happy to connect with your viewers as well, especially development and anything on the consumer space. It is challenging, but it's not as challenging as people think. I always say you have to just dive in and start. Right? People always say I'm waiting for the right time to start my business, or maybe in a few years when time's right. There's never a correct time, right? You can ultimately start. That's always my advice. You can always just start right now. Whether it's a name, whether it's anything. And yeah, I mean, the patent process is definitely, I think it really scares a lot of people when they hear the word patent, but the provisional part at least buys you that 1 year to think whether or not you want to continue to pursue. And because the actual patent will cost you some money. to actually file.
Yeah, yeah, and even more importantly is protecting your patent down the road.
Right.
Have you had any issues
We
with
have.
patent
Yeah.
infringement?
We have, yeah. It was actually more trademark infringement with
Okay.
one end on us, and we've actually sent multiple cease and desist for our patents. There's people sadly on Amazon. That's one thing we really just can't stand is Amazon allows a lot of these third party sellers in China or wherever to kind of sell the same exact product as yours, even though you have an IP. They've cleaned it up a lot now, and if you submit your patents, they push them off, but there still just never ends. We've had to defend it twice. We've won both times. One larger company actually tried to, when we were still young, tried to muscle us and say, "Hey, even though we had the trademark, they said, well, uh, we want your trademark, we deserve it, and we'll license it back to you royalty free forever, but let us own it." And most people would just cave and say, "Oh my god," because it was quite a big company, a known company. And we said no. We kind of just battled it for 3 years, and we ended up winning, and it was a
Wow.
great feeling. But we couldn't use our registered mark for the 3 years, even though we had it granted. Because
Was
once
that a
there's an
trademark
opposition, it
infringement?
was a trademark, yeah.
Yeah.
But once
Now,
an opposition starts, you kind of
yeah.
have to wait.
Did that put your company at risk at any time in terms of money, the
Not
cost to,
really.
oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, we had someone that we committed. We didn't want to do a retainer. We didn't want to do an hourly. We kind of negotiated a flat fee and a success. Hey, if this works out, we'll do even more later. That's another thing I definitely want to touch on is the way we structure our deals. It's performance based for as many things as we can do. Limit our capital as much as possible, outlay as much as possible when it comes to even online ads. I know I'm deviating from the question here, but that's something I definitely want to touch on later. But yeah, no, as far as the patents, I mean, the old saying, your patent only goes as far as you can defend it, right? And it's really just there as a layer. It does keep a lot of the third party, China sellers out because they're not gonna try to fight you for anything. But it's nice to have, put it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and of
Yeah.
course, if you're being acquired down the
Yeah.
road or anything, it's
Oh,
always
has
it's an
plenty of
asset
value.
that adds
Mhm.
value. So, I'd really like to dig into. You've mentioned a couple of things about raising money and funding your company, but also about deal structure. So, I'd love to hear about both of those things. Let's start. Let's start by talking about deal structure because we were kind of on that, and
Mhm.
you said negotiation, I guess, is a big part
Mhm.
of what
Mhm.
you've learned to do, or what's been a big part of building your company. Let me just put it that way. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so most people automatically think, when you start a business, you need to spend on everything. Everything just costs, right? You have to hire X, you have to hire Y, you have to hire Z. And sadly, a lot of these people come out of the woodworks and email you, I can do X for you for this amount of money per month, whether it's a new social media person, whether it's a SEO person, they reach out to thousands of people in hopes that, 20 respond back yes, who are just not as familiar, and they pay a retainer. That stuff really adds up, and we are victims of that too. We thought, no way, let's just find people who are aligned with us for mutual success. So eventually, over time, we came across, we were able to kind of like spot mutually success, like people who are aligned with our basic success, right? So we presented a lot of rev share deals, which to us made a lot more sense. We laid out no money up front and we were paying on a guaranteed sale. So the commission structures were higher, but our risk was zero. So we were only paying on a conversion. And to us, that was like one of the biggest parts of our success, I think, early is that a lot of people pay for all this traffic with no conversions, and you're paying for tons of ads, tons of eyeballs, but you're not guaranteed a result, right? I could pay you a $5,000, doctor, for an email list you may have. I might get one sale out of it, right? To me, that's a total loss versus me aligning someone, whether it's a micro influencer, whether it's somebody specific to travel. Moms, funny enough, are best market. Our top customer are moms. I mean, moms are the best, right? They ultimately buy everything. They advise everything, and their stamp of approval is everything
Means a
to
lot.
most
Yeah.
consumers. Yeah. So we go to those kind of micro influencers, and not so much people with huge following. They're going to charge a ton, and a lot of the reach it's not really there. So by going to someone with a dedicated kind of cult like follower base, you're getting just a lot of the times they just want product too. They say, send me your product, if they like it. And we work rev share deals ultimately is what I'm trying to get at, is whether it's our marketers, whether it's our influencers, whether it's our like our online affiliates, it's strictly performance based and we pay much higher commissions, but we're guaranteed our sale. And that is just a massive, that was a big turning point for us because our balance sheet, you could see where a lot of our expenses went. But now it's so much more in line with what comes in versus what goes out. It's not one sided. It's paying for a guaranteed sale. I would do that all day long. I think anybody would at the end.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's something I
Share
definitely
Yeah, sharing the risk basically.
exactly
And that, that's at the end of the day, people say, "Oh, entrepreneurs are risk takers," but the reality is most entrepreneurs that succeed spend a lot of their time figuring out how to minimize risk.
exactly.
It's not that they're not willing to take on some when it's necessary, but the goal is to minimize risk. And I love how you've done that really all along the way based on our conversations and the way we've talked about things. You were talking about those people, for example, I get them every day because people find my podcast and they say, we can help you get more
Yeah.
viewers. And, and it all, LinkedIn has gotten to be kind of bad for
Oh
that.
yeah, it's every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every day you get those. So, I think entrepreneurs have to be careful about that because those nickels and dimes really start to add up.
Oh
And
yeah.
that takes us a little bit to funding. So I know you started this while you were on a shoestring, while you were
Hmm.
still working. So you bootstrapped it. Did you at any point take external funding? Have you?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
So for the first, I'd say 3 to 4 years, we took no outside capital. We did do that crowdfunding raise, for the product, which allowed us to kind of pocket, keep the operating account kind of flush and also pay for that run of our
Product.
first run of product. But then after that, we were looking for money. I don't know if we actually went on Shark Tank with our first
Yes,
year in
yes,
sales. Yeah, it
yes.
was back in 2016 or 2015. We went on with barely, just not even 100K in sales at the time. And so we went on, thankfully with realistic valuations, no pie in the sky kind of numbers. And, we walked out there, we ended up getting offers from pretty much everybody. We ended up getting a deal with Damon John, who's still very active today. He's more of a friend now than anything. I got the privilege to work in his office for many years in the city until COVID hit and everyone kind of scattered. But so I had to really, thankfully, I got a lot of hands-on advice from him, and he's been a great mentor to me as well. And so he came on. We raised another round after with an angel, and then later on, what we thought was the best route is instead of going to VCs, we had a lot of meetings with venture guys, and it just wasn't kind of the speed we were trying to go with, and very controlling. It's kind of the total opposite of what we were looking for. So we wanted someone strategic. We weren't looking for a bag of money. We were looking for both. So ultimately we decided crowdfunding was actually getting really popular, and we said, let's just give this thing a shot. No one's going to beat us on a value. We're not going to have people controlling us. Let's try this out. So the way we looked at it was you're essentially getting tons of brand ambassadors, right? Who are going to if they're investing in your product, they're going to be talking about your product all day long to everybody. That's like human marketers for your company. So we ended up doing really well. We raised, I think, just under $2 million, and we have thousands and thousands of investors that are now that got our product as one of the perks in addition to some shares. So now you have all these people out there in the world pushing our product, doing everything, using our product. And to us, that was just a home run. We didn't have to give up much equity. We didn't give up control. And now we have, thousands of brand ambassadors out there who genuinely love the brand, that invested in us, put their hard earned money into investing us and growing, with us. So I think that's still, I don't know how popular it is these days, but I was talking to people at the center, I was talking to Bert and Tom about it. I think it's such a powerful platform to use. People get discouraged because it's a ton of work. It is. You have to go out, you have to market it, you have to go reach out to your network, you have to go out to events, you have to send emails out. you're putting yourself out there, absolutely, instead of the kind of more private route via VC, you got to check. But what you get out of it, we think, is just far outweighs just, a check. You're getting all these people willing to help you, and people actually using your product versus, just a checkbook.
Yeah,
So
and
we
probably
highly recommend that.
yeah, and probably
Yeah,
out there selling your product when they can. The
exactly.
exact,
Yeah,
because they have a vested interest in it. So,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, no, we've had because we do a lot of custom branding on our products now too. That's been a huge market for us, and we've had customers, investors, and say, hey, I work for X company. We'd love to do custom units for you guys, and they end up being orders of all the way up to 10, 20,000 an order from just our current partner investors. So it's just super powerful to have all these people at your disposal to say, hey, I'm creating this new product. What are your thoughts? We do updates, investor updates, and it's just these people are actually giving you the feedback you'd like to hear. you
yeah.
know yeah.
It's again back to what we were talking about earlier with kind of owning your communication to your customer.
Hmm.
Like an email list, you now have their contact information directly, so
That's right.
you're not dependent upon a social medium out there to, another company to do that for you. So
Correct.
yeah, so that's really powerful, I think. One of the things I love as I've heard you tell your story is how you've been creative all along the way. And, creative problem solving is something that I think is very valuable for all of us, but especially in the pursuit of an entrepreneurial venture, because you're really experimenting all along the way. I mean, it's
Right.
a big experiment. You're testing your
That
hypotheses
is.
every day. And, I think you pointed it out earlier, too much money too soon can kind of get in the way of that
Hmm.
creativity. But having to be creative along the way and thinking creatively, even after you're at a point where you're not counting every nickel and well, you're always probably
Hmm.
doing that. But
Yeah.
when you get out of those really early, challenging times, just to remain creative is sometimes hard. So I'm really curious about you and your partners. How many years have you all been doing this now?
This will be our tenth year.
10 years. So
Yeah.
are all
I mean, actively selling, I'd say 7, but yeah, the business has been open for 10.
yeah. And so, and still three partners.
Still 3. Yep. Still
And
3 of
so
us.
talk about that a little bit. I know you were college friends and
Yeah.
all of that before you became business partners. That doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't. We're so thankful for it. We've actually mentioned it several times over the years that we're kind of always on the same page. And if we're not, we listen to each other. But I'd say 99% we're on the same page across the board, which is, I mean, you don't really find that. And, we think that's even the investors that have come in and, they notice that right away. The team's still together 10 years later, and you guys still talk to each other all day. It's strong, and I think that's, I mean, and don't get me wrong, as you mentioned, yes, we've gotten creative over the years, but it's been hard. Like every journey, it's a call it the true roller coaster every entrepreneur kind of goes through. We've gone to down to $3 in our bank account all the way up to high 7 figures. It's crazy, right? It's a true roller coaster, and you have to take risks, especially on consumer products where you have to kind of put up the inventory, and eventually you do have to roll the dice and say, okay, I'm taking the risk here, and I'm trying this out. So uh, thinking creatively, I think, is just the most important. And you have to kind of put yourself as the consumer and say, hey, what would I want? Communicate with them, as you had mentioned. And funny enough, now I'd say 80% of our business is direct to consumer. We're constantly releasing new SKUs because we're going out to the same customer. We've already paid to acquire that customer, and we're using that same customer over and over. We have so many, repeat buyers, which to us, it's a good sign if you're getting repeat customers back. And so since that first product, we've created a total of 7 products now, and they're all under the AquaVault company umbrella, but they're all different brands. So our most recent product, Charge Card, if when I see you, I'll definitely bring you one. It's a credit card. So during COVID, I'll kind of just go back on something. During COVID, we were terrified. We're
Yeah,
a
I was going
travel
to ask
based.
about
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
travel based business coming off the best year we've ever had. Travel based business, everything came to a halt. We're talking no hotels, no travel. It was terrifying because we're sitting on a ton of product. What do we do? No one's going, no one's traveling, and there was kind of no end in sight. No one knew what was happening. So we were obviously a bit nervous, and we said we have to. This is a sign that we are just too concentrated in one space, which is beach travel. God forbid something ever happened to that space, we're toast. So that's when we said, hey, let's try to think of an idea, another product that stays within kind of travel and our consumer, but is not focused on travel. It could be anything, that you could use in your everyday life. And we were looking around and there's just bulky chargers everywhere. And, we always like to say the best charger is the one you have on you, right? Not that big, bulky brick with wires sticking out. Yes, that's great for certain purposes when you're, at the airport, etc. But ultimately, the best charger is the one you're out on the town, you're low on battery, and you just need enough to get home, need enough to call your Uber, need enough to just pay your bill or anything. So we created the charge card. It's a credit card sized charger that actually fits in the slot of your wallet, and it has the cables built in, and it comes fully charged out of the box.
Nice.
That product, everyone's like, oh, chargers, such a saturated market. Like everybody needs one. Every single person still needs a charger today, and it charges every device. So we still went with it, and that product's done more for us than any of our products combined, and it's only been out for 2 years. So it just goes to show just how strong that is. And we just had to pivot. That was our pivot point for us. And now we still sell that product to the same customers with the hotels, the theme parks. They're all offering it now too. Whether it's their gift shops, whether we have certain hotel chains that put them inside their rooms, kind of like a mini bar
Yeah.
item. Because
Yeah.
let's say you're in Vegas, these hotels are huge, right? You don't want to go up to your room to get your phone after charging it. You're walking 20 minutes. So they put them in the rooms, and you can just take it down with you. We put their logo on it, and they're constantly replenished every time a housekeeper goes in there, to take it. So there's so many different models. We're now leveraging those same relationships that we've built with just new products. So yeah, I just think pivoting is really important, and not to get scared, and kind of to go back to the money thing. And I'll never forget, I went to this meeting when someone was trying to raise capital, because we were learning how to raise, and I went to this kind of investor meeting, and this guy was pitching his business. He was doing barely any sales, but his burn rate was the most insane thing I've ever seen. Automatically went for a huge office, tons of staff, all the bells and whistles with barely any sales. And I knew this company was done, and it made me say, wow, a lot of companies do that. They get the checks and they just run with it. Um, it's crazy because to this day we have just two virtual employees and the three founders still. So we contract a virtual employee to do our customer service, and we have one doing our social. That's it. But as
Wow.
far as sales, we still handle it. We have, sales agents and distributors around the world. But as far as like, if you were to reach out for a large order, you would be talking to one of us,
Yeah.
three. So I
Yeah.
just think, being hands on like that is still really important. You get to take your temperature of the business really often and see, hey, what's going on here? Where can I cut? What's working, what's not. And in this kind of business where there's so many new kind of ways online to do well, we do like a ton of affiliates. Affiliates for us has been great, especially during Q4. We do a lot of email lists of, hey, these are the top products, top travel products, or the top this. There's just endless ways to kind of start, get creative, and find ways to do that with the newsletter. And yeah.
There's a lot to be said. I mean, there are times when companies have to expand and bring on a bigger workforce, but there's a lot to be said for the lean and mean model. And you mentioned COVID, which was in the pandemic, which was something I was going to ask you about because we all had to stop traveling, and
Oh yeah.
and I have another related question around that. But the reality is, because you were lean and mean, it probably didn't affect you as much as it could have, if you had to. I mean, and even right now in this economy, I talk to C-suite people all the time, and everybody, the big companies, they're all streamlining, they're all cutting
Mm-hmm.
back because of the uncertainty, that the economic uncertainty. And when you're lean and mean, it's, I guess, a little easier to deal with those. Now, I know that every pathway to success has some failures and challenges along the way. Have you had any product failures or company failures, or outcomes that didn't work out the way you wanted them to. And can you talk about that? Because for many of the entrepreneurs that I work with and talk to, that fear of failure is looms really large
Hmm.
for them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we all have families, small children, so that failure part is definitely, nerve wracking to say the least. But I'd say product failures. We've, being new in that space, we created products that didn't really something we missed out on completely. Where we did a huge production run and it wasn't what we were supposed to do, and it came out wrong. So those are failures, absolutely. They're not testing enough or finding out certain restrictions with batteries and kind of going in, just not really fully understanding all of that. I'd say also fail. I mean, it's tough because we've ran such a kind of conservative operation for so many years, and it kind of just started, hockey sticking for us after um, everything was kind of put in place. But I'd say during those years, we were just so careful that, the biggest fear for us was really just depleting all our capital because we really didn't have any. We were using, we had to each send our own wires in, to fund the business, and we were taking no salaries. We had business, we had families, so it's definitely stressful. And I think our biggest fear and failure was just, I don't think, I think the fear was just going insolvent, really. It's just not having enough money to continue.
So I had a question for you. Back in COVID, I'm on a public company, a boat company,
Hmm.
Marine Max board.
Okay.
I'm on their board, and we did really well during COVID because people could get out on boats, and I know
Hmm.
RV sales did really well because people could travel sort of separately. So my question for you is, do you have products that for the boat or the RV industry, and have you looked at that?
We do. We actually sell to a lot of marinas where people put their keys in our flex safe instead of it just sitting, in a drawer somewhere or in a cubby. So we've worked with marinas. We have waterproof dry bags. We have waterproof phone cases. We have our flex safe locks onto the boat. So a lot of times people aren't stealing on boats, but if you go to big parties on boats in the water, or you just don't want your stuff just laying around, it's just secure in the event it falls over. But we have safes for boats. We have waterproof dry bags. We have, chargers when you're out in the water, things like that. But yeah, we've worked with a decent amount of marinas. And we used to go to the boat show a lot pre-COVID because boaters are always on the water, right? At the end, they're kind of perfect for our product. Not so much the safes, but for the waterproof phone pouches. Fishermen love them. So we sell a lot of our waterproof phone cases to water parks
Yeah,
and
yeah.
boaters. Yeah.
When my husband and I were on a longer term cruise on a
Mhm.
sailboat. We used to be sailors.
Yeah.
We're now power boaters, but
Okay.
we used to be sailors, and we were down in the Caribbean, in a part of the Caribbean where it can be you can have pirates, on
Hmm.
come on board, or people come on board and steal. And I know the people we were with, they were on a much longer term cruising, and they had, like, you have your wallet that you share, your hidden wallet, and then your real
Hmm.
wallet. So I think there could be some opportunity, especially on
Yeah.
cruising boats, for something that maybe
Yeah.
that could be disguised, and hidden away. But
Yeah. No,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
I'll just throw out that little bit of information. No,
No, I love that. No,
knowing, I mean, these folks, they had 3 sets of wallets basically, because if somebody came on board, you didn't want to fight with them. You wanted to give something up.
right. Just give
But
it to
they
them.
also knew that that wasn't the real one. So they would say, okay, give me the real one. So you had to have a second one, but then you had the third one hidden away, because a lot of
That's a
the
good idea.
cruisers actually are living with a lot of cash because they're moving around.
Yep.
So
Right.
it's
That's
kind of an
true.
interesting data point.
Yeah, we sell to the cruise lines. We sell to a few of the larger cruise
Sure.
lines, and they've done really well there, the safes, because especially on excursions, you go out. The Flex Safe's really a perfect product for that because you can't just slash through it if someone's walking by, and it can go on your belt. It can go on a kind of a strap, a crossbody kind of strap, and it's a perfect thing for a family to fit their phones, their wallets, their keys, etc. in there.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's definitely been a great product for
Yeah, and
that.
people are traveling more and more. I mean,
Oh yeah.
everybody I know was, I mean, my husband and I went to Europe. I think everybody I know has
Uh-huh.
gone this year. So
That's wild.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
all
it's
getting back to
there's
it after COVID. So tell me what's next for you and your company. I mean, where are you headed? I know you're thinking about the future.
Yeah, so we are launching two new products, and we're potentially looking at a possible acquisition. We've been entertaining. It's bittersweet because that's every entrepreneur's kind of dream at the end, but it's also something we built. So we're waiting for the right strategic there, and so that's going to be exciting. That's definitely on the horizon. But for now, we're creating some new products and just continuing the growth trajectory there. Staying within the product line, and eventually what we just want to build is a big travel security kind of company, and we're onboarding more hotels day by day using the product. Cruise lines, we just signed on with the largest cruise distributor, so eventually our products will be on every cruise. Right now they're just on two cruise lines, but they'll be on all of them just going through the distributor. And yeah, we're just super excited, and especially me being down here now. In New York, I wasn't really around water until the summer, so it's definitely nice to be surrounded by water here, and meeting a lot of great people, including you and everybody else on the board, and yeah, just super excited for what's
Yeah,
next.
well, just really excited that you're here and excited to hear your story. I mean, this has been a great conversation. So many of
Thank
the
you.
students and so many of the young entrepreneurs that I work with are thinking about products. So there's a lot that they can learn from this conversation. I always ask my guests, what's your one piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur? Maybe what you wish you knew, or
Okay.
or something that you've learned along the way that you'd be willing to share.
Yeah, I'd say don't wait to start. Like I said, there's never a right time to start a business, and don't be afraid. People think they need money to start businesses. It's absolutely not true. You need obviously a little bit, but you can start. You can start somewhere. You can go to, Home Depot, make your own prototype. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you could sell, if you could sell your prototype, you're fine. With platforms such as crowdfunding and Kickstarter, you can essentially raise your whole product without barely putting up any upfront capital. So I hate the excuse that I don't have any money, I'm not funded, or I don't have time. It's actually the worst excuse, in my opinion. It's the one you hear most of, because you can make time for anything. If you get home after work and you'd rather watch 3 hours of Netflix, that's the time right there, right? So I always say just dive in, make mistakes. It's very important to make the mistakes early while your risk is essentially nothing, and you're not making big mistakes later. Make the mistakes now, and you'll learn real quick whether or not you want to continue or not. And I highly recommend just not
Yeah,
waiting. That's
that's
my thing.
really great advice, I think.
Yeah,
Fail fast, right?
fail
It'll teach
fast.
you
Yeah,
something, and then you keep going, and it is about passion and drive, and I
it
see a
is.
lot of
Yeah,
that with you, and
thank you.
it's wonderful. This has been a great conversation. Where can our
Thank
readers
you so much,
connect
Doctor.
with you? I mean, our
Yeah.
listeners,
So
our readers.
uh, so I'm on LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, or email. My email's, Avin Samtani, the number one at Gmail. And my socials are just my name. So happy to connect with anyone who has any questions regarding, scaling a business, consumer wise, or patents, etc. And any way I can help out, I will.
Avin, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode and would like to learn more about entrepreneurship, we would love it if you hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of InFactor.